Really lovely to have you all here. It's Sri Yukteswarji's Mahasamadhi Day, and from the morning we had these beautiful flowers and garlands, and we were talking about it a little bit at the fire ceremony and the purification ceremony, and of course you heard Jyotishji's story about his experience with Sri Yukteswarji in Chennai. That was in the Alwar Pet Center. It was not in this temple and not in the temple downstairs, but the temple that came before in Alwarpet. And so I think it might have been the first Kriya initiation they gave there, which was, I think, 2014. So anyway, just to say that it's sweet that, that story that he shared and in Chennai. So he's had very deep experiences everywhere, and so, of course, this one even he wrote about in one of his letters that he and Daviji send out each week. If you're not on that mailing list, you can either go to jyotishandevi.org, and it'll redirect you, or ananda.org/jyotishandevi, and it goes to their blog, where they write a letter each week to all of us about their latest thinking on things, or it's always an inspirational and helpful message. So if you've missed some of their earlier ones, there is, of course, they've been compiled into books, which we have available downstairs: Touch of Light, Touch of Joy, Touch of Love, Touch of Divine Wisdom, and so on. So the only announcement for this week is that we're starting a class series this Wednesday, which many of you know about. It is called Life, Death, and Reincarnation. And it's just a 2-week series, or 2-class series of Masters, touching on some of Masters' teachings of basically how what happens during these experiences for for example, our loved ones, but also for ourselves. It can be very illuminating because, as he said, it's shrouded in such mystery, and he says so much secrecy is observed about these things. That secrecy, interestingly, is breaking down a bit, maybe because it's Dwapara Yuga, I don't know, but in Kali Yuga, the primary reality, or the primary view of what reality is, it's thought to be matter, physical matter, inert. And so that's anything physical is the ultimate and lasting reality. And so you see people who have this consciousness even now. You try to talk to them about spiritual things, and they're just not interested. Swamiji said he was once at a party discussing something with someone, and a man came over with a drink in his hand and said, "What are you talking about?" And Swamiji said, "Philosophy." "Philosophy? Yuck!" And you can understand, it's fine, take your time. But still, it's just that we know that there's more than matter, some of us. And even Einstein said so, and that helps, because if people want to argue with you, you can say even Einstein, and they hesitate before they argue with Einstein. So, or you can say Aryabhata before him. It wasn't only Einstein. So, why do I say that? Because Aryabhata said the speed of light is this many yojanas per whatever it is, which if you convert it to feet per second or miles per second, it's the same. It's close to 300,000 or whatever it is. Amazing. But the fact that he said the speed of light means the speed of light is constant. You see? Sorry, maybe it's a little too early for relativistic physics, but just to say that, what is the speed of your car or your two-wheeler? It depends. Right now, you hope the speed is 0. Otherwise, it means somebody's taking off with it. But you can't say what the speed is. What is the speed of Vijay Arani? Probably fast. But still, it depends. Is it in motion or not? Even if we all know we have certain fast days and certain slow days. You can't say what the speed of anything is. If you say its speed is this, you're saying its speed is always this. It's constant. So again, Aryabhata was implying the speed of light is constant, which is to say that's what Einstein said. Therefore, these other things are relative to it. So, it was all known back then too. So you can say, according to Einstein and Aryabhata, you can call it Aryabhata's relativist theory of relativity, because it doesn't matter. It's God's theory. It's the Earth's theory. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And again, only because it was experimentally observed light bending around a star and so on. Remember, these things aren't just claimed mathematically. They have to be tested to know if it's actually true, objectively. You could say, did I walk into the wrong room? Is this... this isn't what I was signing up for. But the point is, it's true for us. Einstein came up with the theory of relativity intuitively. He had this intuition, and then he had to work very hard to make the connection mathematically to prove it. So are we. When we have an intuitive realization, we should see, if trying to share that with someone, how we can explain it logically, as opposed to, I have seen it, I have spoken. That's not very compelling, because anybody can say that. And just say, I feel! I tried that once. Man, if you want to see the faces in the room go sour, that's one real quick way to do it. They were all decent enough that they didn't say anything, but I thought, that did not work. So claiming to be the source of truth, nobody likes that. So you may have to explain an idea not in the way that it arrived to you. Einstein said he realized that if he was traveling at the speed of light and he saw light, it would be a standing wave, and somehow he realized that meant it had to be constant. But it took him 10 years to come up with the math and the logic to explain it, so that anybody else could barely understand it. But still, even after that, the physicists had to experimentally verify that. And they did something with the telescope and seeing light bending around the sun, and this is the extent and the limit of my physics knowledge, which is actually very, very small. And so we too, even if we have an intuition, and even if we can convince a few others that it might be true, we have to see if it is true. Not even an intuition, a teaching. We have to test it. We have to say, is this true? Because every idea that comes into our head may not be intuition, may not be truth, or it may not be the whole truth. In other words, we get a piece of it, but there's more. As if God is giving us a recipe. Step 1, add the rice flour and the water. Excellent. And then what do you have? Maybe kanji or something, but nothing good. Kanji's terrible. So how do I know? Because you only eat it when you're sick. So anyway, so it's just like there's more to it than that. So if you just get step 1 of the recipe, you have to say, and what else? Adita, what's next? And so we have to test things. So again, that's how I sort of covered my bases. So now it's related to the spiritual teachings again. So anyway, just to say, how did we even get here? I remember Aryabhata, and then before Aryabhata, Einstein, but I don't remember why Einstein. That's the problem. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the Master's teachings on life, death, and reincarnation, it can be very helpful to know about the reality of these. This is what I was saying, Dwapara Yuga. In Dwapara Yuga, Einstein said matter is energy. So Sri Yukteswar also said, so whoever you're talking to, just see who they might be more likely to believe. Some will believe Sri Yukteswar, some will believe Einstein. The nice thing about Einstein is no one really understands it. So you can say Einstein, oh, okay. Einstein, no one will say Einstein Yen, Einstein Epidi. They'll just say Einstein. It's fine. Porem. So now that we know that energy is the basis of reality, and remember, in Treta Yuga, people understand that thought and magnetism is the basis of reality. So though we're very pleased to say not matter, it's energy. At the end of this yuga, everyone's going to say not energy, it's magnetism and thought. Don't be such a fool. So, I mean, let's not get too sort of superior feeling. And then in Satya Yuga, let's say it's all spirit, which is what we believe now anyway. And even in Satya Yuga, you could say, I know, it's actually all spirit. And the answer is, yeah, prove it. Merge with God then. You see, it's not enough to know about something. It's all God, yes, yes, yes. Well, then as they say, put your money where your mouth is. Act on it. You see, that's really the thing. Master did say in Satya Yuga, people can pass in and out of the astral world and the physical world freely. Don't ask me to explain that. But it's interesting. Master himself said, I spend much of the time in the astral world, meaning even when he was on Earth. So there's ways to do it. But usually it's a one-way trip for that lifetime without a return. But some people have these near-death experiences and then they talk about it. What's so fascinating, as I've mentioned a few times, is not only are there a lot of videos on YouTube, which means therefore everywhere, but it's the comments on the videos. This happened to me, this happened to my sister, I'm a doctor, this happened to a patient of mine, you know, just so many things that you have to say, gosh, maybe there's something to it. Not that, you know, this is the part of the experimental verification that I was talking about. We're not going to do any experiments in the Wednesday class. Okay? So we're not going to take it that far. But the point is, it's really fascinating to see how just in the general awareness this is creeping in. I mean, even people who sort of around me have been just like, anything you say that is not materialistic, I don't want to hear. You know, I've already closed my ears as soon as I see you coming. Even in there, they're starting to say, you know, there might be something to this. I heard from somebody that there might be a non-physical reality. And I've said to them, no. Abdiya. You know, because it's better for them to make their own discoveries. Somebody finds out something that you've already known or believed. It's not helpful to say, yes, I knew that 100 years ago. Let them make their own discovery. What does it matter? Their enthusiasm is an inspiration. You know, encourage them, because how do you know when it was done to you? Or you say, I meditate, and someone says, yes, yes, Krishna and the Gita, I can tell you in Sanskrit, which makes me more spiritual than you. You know, there's no such thing. We're all children of God. Anyway, this is not really what I wanted to say, because I did want to say something. But this class is on Wednesday. Hopefully you have the link to register. And so if you don't, then write to us or write to Prasanna or somehow just come. Yeah, you can come on Wednesday at 7:30. It will be online also, so in case you can't come here, you can watch online. Okay. Wasn't it wonderful to hear Jyotishji and Deviji? And it's so nice to hear from them in real time. I think next month's talk with them may be at 9 o'clock because the time in the U.S. changes in about 3 hours. It changes, and they were able to speak at 8:30 p.m. their time. And it's 10 a.m. here, which is our satsang time. But, you know, next Sunday, even, you know, in an hour, 10 a.m. here is now 9:30 p.m. their time. And so it's a little later. So if they want to speak at 8:30, we may have to adjust to 9 a.m. like we did last year. So just be ready that if they're speaking again, you have to just come a little earlier. I remember somebody was saying, they said, what's the time difference from India to here? And I said, well, 5.5, not 5.5, yeah, I guess it was 5.5 hours. And they were saying, 5.5? Oh my God, that's crazy. Half an hour? I said, but that way the whole country can have one, you know, it's too big a country to have one time zone. It has two. So we average them. It's like, it's actually very smart to do it that way. Otherwise, what time is it in Mumbai? Just imagine, you know, I mean, it's hard enough to coordinate things, much less in your country having different time zones. It's really brilliant to make it one. Anyway, something that they addressed, it's interesting they brought it up, or it was asked in a question, because it came up here recently too, and it's been coming up in conversation, and sometimes when things come up repeatedly, you sort of wonder if it's in the air. And they were talking about dealing with people, difficult people, or just in general, how to deal with people. You can always find a way to give love in some form that maybe that person can accept. Swamiji, for example, complimenting that woman on the beautiful scarf she was wearing. Swamiji always did that in different ways. He would find a way to give. And he would also just his presence was very giving. He was radiating that joy and so on. We felt it in his presence, just as Master said, in Sri Yukteswar's presence. Any thoughts or doubts or confusion all just sort of receded, as Jyotishji was saying. It was the same with Swamiji. And maybe you felt it even being with Jyotishji and Davidji, because you really were with them. Because what does it mean to be with someone? To be in their physical presence? Maybe. But you see, their minds were on this subject speaking, and your mind was on them listening. And isn't that even more being with them than being physically? Because we all know if being physically in the same room, someone can... I'm physically here, but my mind is still in bed, back at home. You know, I mean, physical things mean nothing. Master even said there are plenty of rats and mice living in the canyon on this property. In his property, they weren't growing spiritually just by being near him. You know, you can imagine them kind of maybe feeling something. No, and he was making a pointed comment because he said some people just come here to play the harmonium, and he looked at someone. You know, in other words, what are we doing with it? How are we open to it? Not to feel pressured or stressed that it's not good enough, but saying it really matters on our openness, our receptivity. So in the same way, dealing with people according to their openness or receptivity. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because though we're giving love, we sort of find this coming at different levels. The only people who would be interested in giving love to someone else in some form that that person could receive would be people of, shall we say, a sattvic temperament. This is one way to understand it. I don't mean to categorize or make something rigid. On the other hand, if you give no structure, it's sort of hard to kind of even remember what we're talking about. So if we think of tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, that someone of a sattvic temperament would want to give love, would feel a wish, a hope, a desire to help. Even then we have to be careful, because there's always ego. If we're trying to help somebody too much, that becomes unhelpful, but I'll come back to that. So if you are with another sattvic person, you know, all like with Swamiji, all he had to do was just be there, and we would drink it in. We were attracted to it. We would drink it in. If he looked at you and smiled, you'd, you know, be transported. I couldn't take my eyes off him when I was with him. I mean, because I also felt I didn't have enough time with him, and so I would, you know, basically, I didn't realize it, but I would stare at him the whole time, like I was on guard duty or something. And then at one point, in this big crowd of everything, I was staring at him, you know, across the thing, and he just, and I tried to look away, you know, okay, I won't stare at him. I just couldn't. And he, you know, he never told, will you stop? I mean, he never did that. And there's a beautiful picture of Master in a group, and Swamiji is behind Master, and Swamiji is staring right at Master. So says, okay, see, there's precedent for this. So, but, you know, when someone is of a rajasic towards sattvic temperament, because you can be sort of rajasic, which is in the middle, towards sattvic, or rajasic towards tamasic. Rajasic, sattvic, then they're basically busy wanting to help everybody and being in a positive way. They're moving in a positive direction. But it can be like we have to have social justice, and everyone has to have, you know, everything good for them, which is a very good goal. Nothing against it. There was one of Sharmila's nieces who said, if I become president, everyone will have work, and everyone will have a home, and everyone will talk nicely. It was such a sweet thing, from a child's mouth. It's the truth, because how often do we have trouble in this world because people did not talk nicely, or we did not talk nicely. So there is room for that, but after we try enough, we realize it's sort of hopeless to get everybody to agree to be that way, because simply not everybody wants that. Some people want a little chaos, a little fight. Sometimes have we provoked a fight, if nothing else, just to have a little excitement. You see, we have to look at that. I'm not ever saying, see these people and how they are lesser. Please don't miss it. I'm not saying that. Just if we see any traits like that, look for them in ourselves, but also be realistic. And a good way to do it is to say, is that what this person seems to be wanting? You see how that's not a judgment? What if they want to fight? We're not saying they're fools, just saying they kind of like to fight. They have that right. Just as I have the right to want to seek God, or you have the right to seek peace, or she has the right to sort of want wealth or something. As in other words, people need to follow what they think will lead them to happiness. That's how we all learn. Do you see what I mean? Because it's subtle. It can easily be turned into, see how superior we are. And that's unhelpful and also untrue. Until we're in God, we're not superior. And even then, Master said, those who, in the ocean of big waves and little waves, the saints are the tiniest waves, because they're trying to merge back into the ocean itself. And they're not the big waves of see how many blah, 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 and so on that I have. And so, it's so beautiful. So there's really, all of us are equal in God that way. The saints just know it. If somebody has a rajasic sort of restless energy but still downward, then it's not, let's not help the whole world, let's help me. And so then it's more transactional. You do this for me, I do this for you. And so with such people, even though you want to say, think of the higher principle, it's better to just say, hey, I did this for you, and then maybe they will also do something for you. Children can be this way. You ask them to behave well, and they won't. But you say, if you do all your chores, I will give you, 10 rupees or something. They probably laugh if you offer 10 rupees, but maybe more. But in other words, you want to say it is the principle of the thing. But if that doesn't work with a child, meaning I was a school teacher for a while, so you see some children, it just doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't reach them. But if you say, for doing this, these are your duties, and for that you get this much allowance, or you get this much stipend or paid, if that helps them to do good, they'll also then experience the joy of doing good. Some of the students I worked with, I noticed that they started to enjoy having money, because then they could buy little things for themselves and they didn't have to ask. One mother was very clever. She said, you can buy a ticket for the movies, but you have to buy it for your sister also. And, well, why do I have to? She should have to. It's my money. But after a while, the older sister she said, I actually feel good in helping my sister. She's too young to do all these chores and get all this money and so on. And so it's nice. I feel like I'm helping her, because they used to fight all the time. But in this way, she could help. So you see, take the step forward from where the person is. We have to take a step forward from where we are, as opposed to saying you're here and you have to be here or whatever. That's the ultimate goodness, and this is a lesser goodness. But if it's a greater goodness than where they are, then why not? This happened with one of Master's disciples. He was always doing things to please people. And Swamiji said, I have found that it's better to do things to please God rather than please people only. And this man was very offended and very hurt. And Master actually corrected Swamiji. He said, it's my job to counsel these people, not yours. And which also means that Master is doing it, and I'll come back to that. It's his job, and he is doing it. But what Swamiji said was not wrong. It was very good advice, and it's very helpful, but it might not have been helpful for that person because he couldn't see that yet. If he didn't do good to please people, he wouldn't do good at all. So at least in this was a motivator for him. This was his way forward. Does this make sense? How it's relative? See? Huh? Einstein? See? It's relative to where they are. Now, what about for someone whose energy is just tamasic? There's really nothing you can do for them. Because it's basically, how can I talk to someone who's asleep? You can talk to them and hope that maybe some of the words will go into the subconscious. You can pray for them. But it's sort of like, how can you feed someone whose mouth is closed? You can't. They have that right to not be interested right now. They have that right to not want it. They are children of God, just as we all are. They will grow. God is on the job. Master is on the job. If you're praying, one woman who was a disciple of Master, and she was also a psychic in the sense that she would see people who were not in the body. She was with her sister when her sister was dying, and her sister was so against God, all of these things. And anyway, and she was cursing her devotee sister. This is what the woman told me. Anyway, when her sister died, because the devotee was praying for Master, she saw Master come. And her sister was like very shocked and then went with him. And this woman was saying she was so grateful that Master was helping her sister. And he said, though Master was walking away, he turned and looked at her. And she felt suddenly, he was saying, it's because of your devotion that I came. Basically, it's a favor to you that I'm helping your sister. Now, you could say, well, doesn't seem very fair. But of course it's fair. The sister had the karma to have a devotee sister. So there had to be something there. So, it always ends up being fair. When we get to look through all the accounting and the ledgers and footnotes, we see it is fair. But it doesn't seem fair necessarily on the surface. But anyway, is it true or not? I don't know. But it rings true in the sense that Master will help those people you love even if you can't help them. And why can't you help them? Because they don't want help yet. It's good to put the word yet in there, as opposed to don't want help ever. Never! No, of course not. I mean, did we not ever change in our lives? Did we perhaps not? Were we born knowing Kriya? Were we born interested in all these things? No. I certainly wasn't interested in spiritual or religious things at all when I was young. My mom invited me to come to some spiritual place with her, I call it that. And I wore this very sort of dark shirt with these dark things on it from this dark music group that I was listening to at the time. Just sort of daring anybody to question me about it. Expressing my rebellion, which is stupid. But in any case, it's just that I wasn't attracted to anything that I had been presented with. It was only Autobiography of a Yogi and the fact that I was suffering miserably and couldn't find a way out of it, that I said, maybe this is the answer. And everybody will come to that point one way or another, one lifetime or another. Some people have been spiritual in the past, especially it can happen with your own relatives, because again, why are you in this family? And they may have rejected it. And you may be there as a reminder to them that this is a part of their past. And one reason they may be mad at you for doing what you're doing is because they know they should be too. Not just from culture, but from memory, subconscious memory. And it's don't force me. Once one relative of mine said that. Don't try to change me. It's like, are you kidding? Wow. I mean, I was never trying to change him. I was just trying, except to say, can you please stop choking me to death? That's the only change I was requesting. But I wasn't saying, you should meditate, you should be calm, you should smile, you should cheer up. I mean, I'd given up on all of that long ago. But just my existence was a challenge. I don't mean mine. I mean, God's light coming through us, as we were saying yesterday at the Kriya ceremony, presents a challenge to people sometimes. So don't be surprised. This was something someone said to me this morning before the fire ceremony. She said, they have noticed the change in me, and they do not like it. Because I am no longer arguing with them. I am no longer crying when they shout. I am quiet, or I walk away, and they don't like it. And that's basically when you're dealing with tamasic people, that's the thing, because they're saying, solve my problem, take away my unhappiness, let me drink your blood. You can laugh. But it's true. I need to feed off of your energy. You have to solve this problem. It's your fault I feel this way. That's tamasic. And again, no person is fully tamasic. Someone like that may behave that way in their relationships and may have a very successful career, professional career. They may be very generous with their friends, only bitter with their family, or vice versa, and so on. So never think of a person as if this is their particular way with you. And Master said this all the time. Swamiji said there would be people who came to him that were just impossible in their personalities. And people would sometimes say, but Master, he shouts at everybody all the time. And Master would say, but he's a very good father to his children. Well, fine for the children. We're not all his children. But he would always find something positive to say about the person. And Swamiji said, people would come and you didn't know what Master saw in them. But that's how we felt around Swamiji. That there would be sometimes very difficult people, and Swamiji would just, give them something to do or encourage them or so on. If they were, hateful against him or something, he would leave them alone. He wouldn't be offended. Well, if you're going to be like that, he would never, it's not that. It's just that he saw they weren't open. They weren't interested right now. You can't force things on people any more than you like to have things forced on you. Ilya? Because we all know when someone, you should do. So we neither want to hear it, nor do we want to say it. But I'm saying this because of what this person brought up this morning. She just stopped reacting to them, and they were mad because she was no longer feeding them energy. Feeding them attention. Sometimes people will act even in negative ways just to get attention. They'll shout just so you shout back, because then they feel something. And so it's very important and not always easy, especially for someone of a sattvic temperament. I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to be mean. What is it in me that I can change to help this person? So I say this because though what from a sattvic point of view, you want to give love, you want to help. And I had to say this to someone recently. I said, yes, I agree. And then we feel bad if we feel like we're not helping. But I said, is letting them drink your blood, metaphorically, is letting them, giving them all this energy, indulging every temper tantrum, no, that's okay, I'll make it okay, it's not your fault, no problem, hey, I'm sorry. You should apologize when you're wrong, because some people will never say that. But if you're not, is that actually helping them? You want to help them, but is taking care of them in this way, is that actually helping them? And how do you know? Well, if it's been 15 years and there's been no change, maybe try a different tactic. Do you see what I mean? So it's still the highest truth of helping, but saying, I'm going to help you become strong in yourself by no longer babying you. I don't mean to say that, but I mean to think it, to act that way. Does that make sense? It's subtle. If you haven't encountered it, it can sound harsh or it can sound pointless. But you will encounter it. Because the more you grow, and the more you grow in light, and the more you grow in energy, the more you will find people, spiritual people attracted to that. As Master said, whoever sees your eyes will change. Not that you should tell them that, but just that what he means is if you will let him come through you, then he can help them. But then other people will be unconsciously attracted to that. They don't want it yet, but somehow they like something. But then this same attitude, if they're tamasic, they'll just like to be around it, but they won't do anything about it. If they're rajasic but tamasic still rajasic tamasic, they'll like it and they'll want to take it. Give me attention, give me energy, give me money. It's your job, it's your responsibility. Only a baby says that. And so then rajasic sattvic will be attracted to that, and you can bring them into it. The only sort of hesitation may be we have to make everybody believe this. Everybody has to feel peace. And that's a good goal. But we have to first have God. We can't approach it on a social level. from below or even from parallel. We have to first ourselves know God. Then we can share that with others. As Jyotishji said, there's a spectrum. He was talking about drunkenness. There's a spectrum. So obviously, there are degrees of this. Someone says, could you tell me where I could learn to meditate? Until I merge with God, I can't say anything. It's like you can give them a website, you can give them a book, you can say you might like TM if they don't like this path. I mean, so there are degrees. But in terms of trying to help someone that way, God is helping. Divine Mother is the mother of us all. God is the policeman taking care of everything. Someone may be getting away with everything in this life, and who knows what they went through in the last life or the next life. And don't say you're going to get bad karma, because Swamiji said that's just a yogi's way of saying you're going to go to hell. We just leave all that to God. We mind our own business. Help when you can, which is when somebody wants it. And even when they want it, be careful. Remember when I said to Diana after I gave advice to somebody and the person, something happened to their face. I wasn't sure what was wrong. So I said more. And then I said to Dianaji when it finally hit me that maybe it was the wrong thing, I said, how do you give advice? I don't. Which she had given me actually quite a bit of advice. But I had asked and I was open and I found it helpful and at that time. So otherwise, just don't bother with people. Don't irritate them. Don't challenge them. Just let them be. And if you're in a dynamic that you can even feel yourself like this, but please, it's time to meditate. It's time to get calm, time to get centered in yourself. Maybe from then a new idea will come and how you can help them. Or you can just ask Master, look, I'm going to take a break. Can you please watch over them for a while? Does that make sense? Do you see the difference? Because it can seem harsh, or it can seem like, okay, so we should never help anyone. And of course that's not what I mean. So I also say this because we have to see where we are on the spectrum. We may not be in a sattvic mood with a particular person. We may be in the tamasic mood with them. There you go again. Always, so we have to say, okay, with myself, where do I have to do some growing, some healing, and so on. So it's not just a simple, this is the way to be, but hopefully this spectrum, tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, and sattvic, can be helpful. Okay? But most of all, ask yourself, does this person seem interested? Is this something they want? Is it working? And again, do they want for their own good? Because you can say plenty of people want. They're always asking me for money, asking me for energy, asking me to solve all the problems, asking me to shoulder the blame for everything wrong in their lives. They want that, but of course that's not helping them. Because what happens when you're gone? Then they have to find someone else to suck dry, someone else to feed off of when they have that own strength within themselves. And that's what will help them, is to develop that. Okay? This has been coming up a lot. And some people have expressed sort of surprise about this thought. How can I feel bad if I don't help. And Jyotishji and Deviji were saying, find a way to help, but make sure it's actually helping. With a stranger, it's easy. I mean, if you meet a stranger and they look sad, you don't have to say, excuse me, are you tamasic or rajasic tamasic, or do you even know? Just smile. Just be kind. With strangers, it's easy. And if nothing else, it's brief. And pakalam. So everything with a stranger ends in pakalam. Otherwise, they're not a stranger anymore. But with people that we know well, we also want to help. But we have to say, how can I truly help? And what help does this person actually want? Okay? Okay. So I'm sure the help that everybody wants now is tea and coffee. And so I'll stop. So thank you all.